Jack, this is Ryan. I'm sure you absolutely remember who I am. No, I mean, we're obviously part of the Jurassic Outpost group who put together, Jack and Chris especially, these two, put together the event. So thank you again for coming out and just joining us and answering the questions that you did. And, I know that you get asked a lot of Jurassic Park questions from fans, and I mean, you're a paleontologist at heart, so we're gonna try and keep this as JP kosher and scientific kosher, because we actually have a couple dinosaur science nerds, myself and Chris included. So,
okay.
But I guess my first question is, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you are retired now, right?
I'm retired from Montana State University, yes.
But not from the adventures of life.
Right. I now work at Chapman University in Orange, California. I retired from Montana State University and the Museum of the Rockies because I basically filled up the museum. Wasn't anywhere to put anything else. So I decided that I would retire from museum work and just teach.
As well as you're working on the Chickenosaurus project.
Right. Yeah, some research, a lot of research projects still going
on. And that's something that we can I definitely want to jump into, but maybe we can do some of the Jurassic questions first. Some of the general Jurassic talk.
I'll jump in with just to kick off the Jurassic questions. So out of all the Jurassic films that you've worked on, which is your favorite?
Well, they're all different. Obviously, the first one was really a lot of fun. It was great to spend so much time with Stephen. But Jurassic Park 3 was a lot of fun as well. Joe Johnston was the director, and he and I became very good friends. And so he actually allowed me to watch, basically putting together the entire movie. So I got to spend some time with the editor and basically everyone involved in the movie. So that was a lot of fun in itself. And then of course this last one is so different. The whole process is so different, and Colin's a very different kind of guy than the other two directors were, and so that was fun too. So, and I got to do a little cameo, so that was interesting just to see how that whole thing works.
Yeah, you cameoed with Phil Tippett, right?
Well, Phil we weren't together in the cameo, but we were there at about the same time,
Okay. Same set, yeah.
Same
hot location in Louisiana.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Jack, I just wanted to know, kind of like going back before the movies, Michael Crichton, he reached out to you originally for the novel?
No, actually, the first time I met Michael was in the limousine on the way to the premiere of Jurassic Park in Washington, D.C.
I see.
I had written a book called Digging Dinosaurs.
Right.
And another colleague of mine named Bob Bacher had written his Dinosaur Renaissance book. And Michael Crichton basically, read both of those books and integrated them together to make his Alan Grant character. And then and basically took information out of both of our books to make a paleontologist and the paleontological story. When Steven Spielberg came along, he basically took the Bob Bacher character out of Alan Grant and based it primarily on me. And then in the second Jurassic Park movie, we actually had Bob in the movie as another character.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like snakes?
Poor guy.
Precisely.
No, I mean, I think that it's pretty cool. You've worked on all these movies, and I think what's fascinating is the film industry has continued to evolve pretty significantly in change. I mean, it's taken a heavier lean on CGI. And the Jurassic franchise itself, when it started itself, it was trying to stay a little closer to science, and obviously with changes to make it more dramatic and more cinematic and scary. But now it almost has a legacy where Jurassic dinosaurs are their own thing. So now, as you work on them, I guess there is a certain caveat that it's got to adhere to the first film. I mean, personally, I'd like to see feathers, if I'm being honest. But
I mean, I guess there would have been ways to fix that, but quite frankly, I mean, it would have been expensive, and I think that's what we always have to keep in mind is movies are made to make money, and so you don't create overhead if you don't have to. And making, feathered dinosaurs would have been a real project.
Yeah, I mean, even just the rendering, I would imagine that Industrial Light and Magic would have to research some new techniques because they're mainly for hard surface and skin. And I don't think I've really seen any big budget pictures use heavy feathering. I'd imagine it would call for movies.
I worked with Stephen on Terra Nova, and we were able to get some dinosaurs with some, pretty good feathery stuff on them. Yeah. But that was for television, so it was a little different.
It's a shame they never made a season 2 of that.
It is, but that again was a very expensive
TV show.
Very expensive TV show, right?
I almost wonder though if there is going to be room for television like that with the rise of Netflix funding projects, bigger budget projects. They've got all their deals with Marvel, and
right.
I almost wonder,
especially with computer graphic sets now. I can see that things certainly could be changing very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's kind of something that's exciting to me, though, about Jurassic World 2, is it seems to be taking a more, rather than a digital approach, it seems to be diverting back to more analog, like a more practical approach. They're building a lot of sets. They're filming on a lot of locations. They're building animatronics again. And for me, I personally find that exciting, just putting that real practicality in motion.
Yeah, well, it's again, it's up to people making it, how much they're going to spend.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think that something that people would probably really like to hear is, what is the process of working on these films like for you? Like, what type of questions do you get when they're designing a dinosaur? How much influence do you have? Have you ever had debates back and forth where perhaps you need to try to convince them to go in one direction that's a little bit more accurate to a real animal, where they wanted to kind of make it more of a science, more of a fictional character?
Well, there are a lot of fictional characters in the movie. So in Jurassic Park 1, I certainly spent a lot of time with Stephen, and I spent a lot of time in ILM and basically my job was to make sure that the dinosaurs looked as good as they could, based on the fact that it was a fictional movie and the fact that Stephen wanted basically they're supposed to look like dinosaurs. Just we could put them together, but then they become actors, and so what they do on film is way different than what we expect them to do in real life. But there were different dinosaurs. Tyrannosaurus Rex, being the star and all, looks pretty good for the time that we built it, and from the time that it was modeled. It actually looks really good. We know now that it really doesn't look like that, but on the other, back in 1993, that's pretty much what we thought it looked like. It does a lot of things that I don't think it could have done. But then when you get to the velociraptors, we took, liberties were taken with its name, and the kind of animal that it is. I mean, velociraptor is a tiny little thing, And so basically, Stephen decided to just make it bigger. And I don't care about big. I mean, dinosaurs, we don't have any clue how big dinosaurs got. Even individuals, we're always finding bigger T-Rexes, and we're always finding bigger sauropods and bigger everything. So we don't really know what their ultimate size are. But dinosaurs like the spitter, that is a dinosaur called Dilophosaurus, and we have a skeleton of it. There's one at Berkeley, and the skeleton's actually bigger than the thing we made. So it was basically made to fit inside of a Jeep.
Yeah.
Is it my understanding that the Dilophosaurus seen in Jurassic Park was supposed to be a juvenile?
Well, it doesn't really matter what it's supposed to be. I mean, it didn't. We have no evidence of it having a big fleshy around it, or shooting goop out of its mouth, or I mean, it was literally an animal that was fictionalized completely.
Yeah.
I mean, while we're on that topic, because we've been talking about the Dilophosaurus a lot lately, the past 24 hours. It's a fan favorite, and I mean, we're really excited, hoping that it's going to come back, especially in Jurassic World 2. But was there ever discussion about the frill popping out? Similar to the basilisk. Like, where did that idea come about?
Yeah, well, it is the basilisk. I have no idea who came up with the idea.
Well, it looks cool.
I didn't read Jurassic Park, the book. I didn't read. I'm dyslexic, so I don't really read much of anything. So I don't even. Was it in the book? Was it in the book?
Yep. I don't know, Chris. Was it in the book?
The frill was not in the book. In fact, the Dilophosaurus was the real size of the animal in the book.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
I don't think it's. I had just read it. I should remember, but I don't think it spit either. I think no, it did.
It did
spit. Yeah, it did spit, but it did not have the frill.
Okay, well, I don't have any problem with making dinosaurs like that. I mean, we actually know, we know they had big bony crests all over them. They had lots of display features, and we actually have found the impressions of soft tissue, little things down their backs and on top of their heads, and fleshy structures like combs, and so we know they had all of the capability of all of that sort of stuff. So I don't have any problem with display features at all.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as size goes, I don't have any problem with that. The only issues I ever had was that the raptor should have feathers, and all the dinosaurs should be more colorful. But
yes,
that was a discussion Stephen and I had, and I lost.
Yeah, from my understanding, feathered designs were explored for Jurassic World. I mean, it was very early on, but there were feathered, at least velociraptors.
Yeah, but and we knew that they gave rise to birds, so we knew that there was a good chance they were pretty colorful as well. At least the males, and of course in Jurassic Park we have females, so we don't have to worry too much about that. But we could have had much more colorful animals.
I still think that there's potential for that in the future with future films, even if it's maybe velociraptors and the Tyrannosaurus adhere to their retro Jurassic look when a new species is introduced. Maybe inject some modern science into it and have some fun.
If you were going to sort of remake the Jurassic Park series, you could certainly do that. I mean, you could come up with all sorts of ways to, the whole thing is based on. The whole premise is based on the fact that, that they had to they didn't have complete DNA, so they had to add some other stuff to it. So
yeah,
so you can.
So I guess this is interesting. It kind of saying with the involvement of the way the raptors evolved. Which velociraptor from which movie was your favorite? Because a lot of people, well, at least I personally prefer the Jurassic Park 3 raptors with the quills on the head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That at least had a little bit of frilly stuff on them. I don't know. I'm pretty partial to the latest ones.
The Jurassic World.
Oh, with the scoots?
The Jurassic World computer graphics are just awesome, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, using the motion capture for the Velociraptors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did add more color this time around. You know, you had some variation and some.
Yes.
You certainly did.
I just wanted to ask, it was the question that we were kind of debating before. We were looking through the different dinosaur lists and just kind of wondering what it would be like. So with some dinosaurs, obviously, you know, that are well known, like Velociraptor, Tyrannosaurus, I'd imagine advising on them is a little bit easier. But we're going through some of the dinosaurs that are supposedly on the islands, just by like on the list of the map, and there's some ones that are lesser known, just even in terms of science, like if they were to bring something like, what is the name of it? Metriacanthosaurus, which is, from my understanding, what was that?
I said I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not described by many fossil findings at all. So when there's something like that,
there are 800 genera of dinosaurs. I don't know them all. There are probably 100 or there are probably 1,000 sixth graders that know all of them.
Right.
Yeah. No, I knew a lot more dinosaurs when I was younger. That's for sure. I don't even know how I knew the things I knew.
But yeah, Jack, we every once in a while we did bring, Spinosaurus was sort of a weird one to bring into it, and that was brought in just for the purpose of taking one of the T-Rexes out. So and since we did that, we've actually learned that Spinosaurus was an aquatic animal and wouldn't have been out running around on land anyway. Couldn't come out and run around on land. So, when we added it to the movie, we didn't know that, but now we do, and now we know that all it did was eat fish. So, going to have a fight with a T-Rex.
That's actually the fun part, how it always evolves.
Jack, with with Jurassic World, so I mean we've kind of learned that before the I-Rex, there was kind of the idea or the concept that maybe the new dinosaur would be something that would be yet to be undiscovered in the fossil record. I mean, it would make total sense for the geneticists to pull out of a mosquito a species of which we haven't seen before. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. The Malisaurus,
Malisaurus. Yeah, it was actually based off of, I think they found a fossil in China and they broke it open by accident. There was soft tissue inside, much like what really happened with the Tyrannosaurus soft tissue. And it was supposed to be like a new super predator discovered in China. And then I think InGen cloned it, and that was the earlier version of Jurassic Park 4.
Oh, okay.
Jurassic World.
So yeah, Jack, did you have say in what that was, or were you aware of the Malisaurus, or was it just more of the I-Rex was your idea?
No, I have all the previous scripts. We were playing with a lot of ideas, and that was a really good idea. I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that one.
Of finding something, that hadn't been described yet, hadn't been found. That was a great idea. But, we were talking early on, we got to really talking about the fact that if Jurassic Park were real, if you had found real dinosaur DNA and you had figured out a way to clone it and bring dinosaurs back, the thing that you could do is make hybrid dinosaurs. And so, it is from that whole notion. I mean, that is actually a very realistic thing. We could do that right now. We could make hybrid dinosaurs if the premise had been accurate. That's what I'm saying. Indominus Rex is actually the most accurate dinosaur ever in a movie.
I remember you said that at the Q&A.
Yeah.
So I guess leading on from that, about those, maybe the original, we've seen so many stories about how Jurassic Park 4 developed over the years, and obviously you said you've got a number of scripts which you'd never be able to share, but is there any specific concept other than the one we just spoke of that you really wish had made it to the screen?
No, that was certainly my favorite, other than the one that did.
Yeah.
I mean, there was, some of the earliest scripts were, basically, I mean, they were very similar to the previous movies. So,
yeah, we have.
Everybody knew that it had to be different.
Yeah, we've seen this or read the sales script, and
paratrooping Dilophosaurus and raptors with dog and human DNA in it.
Yeah, some of the ideas were a little interesting, we'll say,
right.
And especially some of the human hybrid ideas. I guess that's a question. I guess I have is kind of with Jurassic World and with the Indominus being a hybrid. We didn't get to see it so much on film. There was kind of a brief snapshot of the Stegoceratops. There's toy lines of the hybrids. What are your thoughts on this possibly developing into a thing with the franchise of hybrids, or do you think we just might see more of we know that they're not real dinosaurs, but more of the classic versions?
That's good. What's going to happen? Who knows? I mean, the franchise was for 5 movies, and this will be the 5th one. So it'll be interesting to see if they do anything beyond here. I mean,
it certainly will.
I think Colin has announced that Jurassic World is going to be a trilogy. I think that they said there's going to be at least one more movie after this one. So they must have renewed the rights. I'm not exactly sure how that all goes down, but it is interesting. We did see that Stegoceratops.
Yeah.
I imagine dinosaurs are not going to be going away anytime soon, especially in the Jurassic franchise, though. Whether or not hybrids take over, I think people like dinosaurs. I think they like to be able to see something that they go to the museum and see the fossils of and see a representation of it in the film. Even if it is kind of dated and retro and monstery, I think people still like to think like this kind of really was a real animal. I think that's the appeal, for me at least.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about genetic engineering, I think that could lead us into something very real rather than, fiction. And it's what you're working on currently and you've been working on for some time is the Chickenosaurus. Would you like to talk about that a little bit? Because I just find it so incredibly fascinating.
Well, it was this thing that sort of spun off of the whole notion of Jurassic Park 4. Back in 1993, when Jurassic Park came out, one of my students and I got a grant from the National Science Foundation to attempt to get DNA out of a dinosaur, and we didn't. We weren't able to. And it turns out the only reason we weren't able to is because it just breaks down too quickly. DNA just doesn't last long enough. But Mary, my student, found heme, which is the iron foundation of blood. It's hemoglobin, and that was very exciting. And so, in the early 20s, 2001 or something like that, we found another Tyrannosaurus rex that was preserved really well, and Mary and I did some extractions on that, and we were actually able to find soft tissues, blood vessels, and proteins, and all kinds of really cool things that we did not expect to see because we thought fossilization would destroy. And so early on, we've known that that there's some capabilities, and every time you have a capability, you think it'd be really cool to bring dinosaurs back if we could. But we can't get DNA, and so we know we can't do it that way. But as we were sort of moving into the notion, the stories of Jurassic Park 4, we realized that what we probably the movie would probably go toward some kind of genetic engineering, and so at that time, I had already come to the conclusion, that it was possible, that at least possible, not theoretically possible, that we might be able to take a bird, which is the descendant of a dinosaur, and retro-engineer some of its dinosaur-like characteristics. And we didn't really know what the possibilities were at that time, but I had some colleagues who were working on the evolution of birds from dinosaurs, and they were looking at particular genes that might have been involved in this evolutionary process, and I was talking to them about the fact that if we could find those genes, we could actually reverse them. In other words, if they had turned off or they had turned on, we could do the opposite and see if we couldn't get some of these characteristics back. And so I started writing my book about the same time that we were starting to make Jurassic Park for the movie originally. And my book had actually, even the publisher, we had everything planned for the book, How to Build a Dinosaur, to come out with the movie. But then Stephen had some problems with Universal and they postponed it. So the book came out by itself and everybody was like, what's this? So this is kind of weird. This is weird.
So it's a fascinating project to be working on. And obviously from our end, we're just so excited to see more. I think it was in 2015 you said from a quantitative point of view you're about 50% there. What would the percentage be now?
Well, the project, the laboratory part of the project was started, I guess, in about 2007, and we were predicting, we were hoping that we could get it done in 10 years. And so it's been, 10 years?
10 years.
So, I guess, the 2007 is when we started planning for it. It's about 2010 when we actually got the lab up and running and we're actually doing things. So it's been 7. So we've got about, I'm predicting, we've got about 3 years left to make, some kind of a goal. But what's interesting is, CRISPR has come along, and that's a way to knock genes in and knock genes out, and it's a relatively simple process, and it's a cheaper process than has been available before. And so the capability is there. A lot of the features that that we were looking at, arms and hands from wings and teeth and change in the head, a lot of this has already been accomplished. So really the only thing left that we haven't figured out yet is the tail. Right. Birds have lost their tail. Birds have lost the dinosaurian tail. And we thought that might be an atavistic gene. We thought it might be an ancestral gene that all we had to do is flip back on. But, and we went through, we looked at every kind of animal you can imagine, mice and so forth, and looked at, what had happened when they knocked certain genes out of mice and they lost tails. And we looked at some of those gene sequences and tried to flip them back on so we could make tails and tailless mice. And what, we sort of came to the conclusion that birds were so different than mice that we really had a different kind of problem. And so the lab really now is working. My lab is, the people are still working in Montana on trying to figure out the tail. And they're learning all kinds of really cool things about potential, diseases in humans. I mean, they're finding out all kinds of cool things, but we still haven't really figured out how to make a tail on a bird. So, we hopefully in the next 3 years we'll solve that problem.
So, you think you're about 3 years out. I know that when you've worked on the snout and you've worked on the teeth, and I've been able to read your book and learn a little bit more in depth into the processes before all of this happened. How far along in the embryonic stage can you get? I haven't heard anything. I don't believe if you're hatching them or not. But it would obviously be really cool. But where do you have to draw the line? And will eventually we see, if you are able to accomplish the tail, are we eventually, I guess, going to see a fuzzy looking dinosaur creature walking about in the next 3 to 5 years?
I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
I hate doing all this for nothing.
Right.
We I guess first off, we don't hatch them. Everything is done at a very small early embryonic stage, and we just basically stain the cells to see which ones are actually growing, which ones aren't. So we can tell what's going to happen without letting the embryo get very far before we terminate it. Everything is done in embryo. Nothing is hatched. I think that's the best way to think about it. And we don't even get close to hatching. It doesn't look like anything. It looks like a red spot on a yolk.
I see. Okay.
And I suppose if you did get the tail, that would present some challenges, because wouldn't that change the balance of the chicken itself when the legs need to readapt for having a tail?
Some people thought that might be a problem, but there was a group in Chile, I believe, that in South America, I think it was Chile, that actually did an experiment. They attached what looked to me like a toilet plunger to the back end of a chicken.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
And did some experiments and said that the animal adapted to it very quickly.
Yeah. I remember seeing that ridiculous chicken.
It was actually kind of fun to watch.
With a plunger to its butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did adapt to the new balance and looked quite dinosaur-like, actually, if you could picture that as a tail rather than a plunger.
Exactly.
So, does that mean that in the future we might have to visit a sort of Jurassic Park of sorts with seeing the Chickenosaurus? Do you think that's something that people will be able to see in person, but rather than it being about seeing dinosaurs, it's about seeing, scientific discovery and the work that went into it?
Well, once you can make one, you can have them for a pet if you want. You don't have to go anywhere to see it. It's like making a Chihuahua or any of these other weird dogs, right? Once you figured out how to do it, you can pretty much consider it another domesticated animal.
And do you think that once you've done it on chicken, you could do it on other birds? Create a even more deadly cassowary?
Ostrich.
Birds are monophyletic. They share a common ancestor. So we use chickens only. The only reason we use chickens is because their viable eggs are easy to come by and they're cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Viable ostrich eggs are really expensive, and so that would be an expensive project. And
yes,
a chicken's just smaller, right? Then you don't have to figure out. That's right, a lot easier to work with.
I'm just thinking of birds like cassowary, which are actually, beautiful animals, but they can be deadly. They've got a mean kick. And I'm just imagining if we giving them more dinosaur-like traits,
that's
what that would do. It's one of those things. I would love to see it.
There are some dino birds that you probably want to be careful with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. Some birds like the Hoatzin, they're still when they're younger, they still have the claws on their wing.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that it is kind of fascinating. When you look at birds, if you throw a tail on them, they're a dinosaur. I mean, they are a dinosaur already, but if you throw a tail on them, they're a dinosaur. It's just it's right there in front of you, and you take that for granted so often because you're so used to seeing them.
Yeah, that is true.
Jack, did you?
Yeah.
Did you have? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we have two Jacks.
Yeah, two Jacks. Yeah, I was saying.
So I mean, I'm so fascinated with the Chickenosaurus project. It's so brilliant, but I've got to. I mean, we'll trail back into Jurassic Park, and obviously, Ryan, if you've got more Chickenosaurus questions or questions, we can go back to there. But I got to say, the films are obviously fictional, but especially when children watch it, and obviously when Jurassic World came out, a new generation of children became obsessed with dinosaurs. So, what do you hope that people take away from it? Do you hope that a lot of people, it kind of inspires them to go into paleontology?
Well, it certainly did after Jurassic Park. I had I don't know, three graduate students before the movie came out, and they were all male students. And after the movie came out, I had 18 graduate students, and it was 50-50 male and female. So Ellie did her part. We got people interested, we got women and girls interested in paleontology, and that was a really cool thing. And I think ever since I talk to kids all the time, and they kids that are in college now say that they got interested in paleontology through Jurassic Park. And so we've seen a pretty constant run of students that way. That they're not accurate. The dinosaurs aren't accurate. The storyline isn't accurate. Dinosaurs really wouldn't be like that. They're not going to break a building down just to eat a person when there's a perfectly good thick triceratops on the field. But it's a storyline that people really like, and they're animals that people really like, and I think the dig scenes themselves in the movies have helped a lot as well. Just people actually seeing, for years we've seen archaeological digs in the movies, but here we get to see finally a dinosaur dig in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even in Jurassic Park 3, they had the introduction of Billy Brennan, who was a paleontology. He was studying with Dr. Gran, and I loved that scene, the kind of throwback to the original film, with the kind of the camera kind of tracked up from the fossil. It was just really great to see that.
Yeah,
I think it was cool that they they dove into the more back then with the 3D, the rapid prototyping of the they took some fictional leads with it, the resonating chamber of the velociraptor, but I think what it was interesting is seeing how science has continued to evolve, and we are learning new things about dinosaurs and experimenting in new ways. I think that it really did help illustrate that it's not just pulling these things out of the ground.
Actually, that particular scene where they were rapid prototyping the aerial chamber of a velociraptor was based on research we had done at Montana State University, where we had CAT scanned a duckbill dinosaur, and then with a very early rapid prototype machine, we had created a hard copy. I think it might have even been made out of sugar at the time. Cast of that internal structure of this duckbill dinosaur, and then we made a mold around that of a special kind of plaster that was very similar to the density and strength of bone, and then we blew air through it and attempted to determine the pitch of a dinosaur. So That
this is the Parasaurolophus.
Well, it wasn't a Parasaurolophus. This was a dinosaur called Hypacrosaurus.
Oh, okay.
This actually was what that thing was based on. So that actually was based on real science.
That's awesome.
And I think that's what's really cool is a lot of times people don't realize all the experimental ways to discover more about dinosaurs that are happening. I mean, there's just so much. The sky's the limit, honestly.
That was Jurassic Park 3, and so that was, Joe Johnston had come out to the field with us. So that, even the field site was, almost he went out and found a copy of my pickup truck somewhere in Los Angeles. It's in there. If you look at it real closely, it says Museum of the Rockies, Montana State University on it.
Yeah.
I mean, he had gone to a lot of trouble to, copy a lot of the stuff that, that we did at the museum at that time.
It's incredible to see. I mean, just kind of a lot of not only what you did throughout your career, but kind of embodiments in the scenes of some of your biggest achievements, I guess, in your career. I guess including Jurassic Park, but considering just the work that you've done throughout your entire life, what would you consider, I guess, your crowning achievement, or do you feel like you've yet to discover that? I mean, you're constantly discovering and theorizing, new behaviors and revolutionizing the way that people see and think about dinosaurs. What do you consider your biggest achievement?
Great graduate students that have gone on to become great paleontologists.
That's awesome.
That's actually an amazing answer.
I mean, for me, and Chris even included, I was a dinosaur nut before Jurassic Park came out. And it's funny because just some of the research that I've done on you, and I think your son included, I was around 7 or 8 years old when I lived in what I like to call the Badlands of Missouri, and I had this this giant boulder rock in the front of our house that was just encrusted with old ancient seashells and crustaceans that all I had to do was chip it away, and that got me interested. And I actually. You have been a childhood hero of all of us and many Jurassic Park fans, but just being a dinosaur nerd and having the movie just ignite that flame. I've always wanted to be a paleontologist at heart, which leads me to a question: how do I get on a dig site, Jack? Because I would love to volunteer. You don't have to pay me. I'll bring my own snacks. I've lived in the Badlands for about a week. I could probably do it for a little bit longer. How does one go about helping graduate students, or I guess how do we help dig up dinosaurs?
Well, it's a process. We get. let me just say that back in the days when I was attempting, when I was first getting into the field and looking for volunteers, they were hard to come by. I mean, I would get some geology students and I'd get a few people off the street. By the mid 1990s, we had over 1,000 people trying to get on the sites, and we had to, I would take, at the most, 100 people, and so it became a real project to find the right kind of people.
Yeah,
because we had to find people that really could live in a communal situation and really pitch in and help with everything, the dishes and cooking and all that thing. It really is a very communal living situation, and it requires that everyone really help out in all levels. And so So, when we're looking for people, we really do screen well, and we have to. But we also have visitors that come out to the sites, and just want to come out and spend a couple of days and look and see what's happening. If you are interested in seeing a site, the best thing to do is send me an email.
You got it. I can do it all, Jack. I can cook. I can sing around the campfire.
I've never heard you sing.
I took wilderness survival classes. I can do it all. I can lift about 50 pounds. So you just tell me how to do what I need to do.
You sound like you're pretty handy.
I'll pay you if I have to. But
it's funny because I actually almost did join you on a dig, but unfortunately life came at me and some things didn't work out. But I was actually, I had gone through a lot of the processes, emailing with the different people involved, and things were actually going to happen. So I've got to make that happen eventually. Unfortunately, that was many years ago, but I've got to make it happen now.
It's pretty easy to do. It's a screening process.
Yeah.
Well, Chris is a crazy person, and I'm normal.
The easiest thing to say on public lecture is that it's a screening process.
Yeah.
I think that is something that's worth noting is a lot of people supporting the sciences is incredibly important. So for people who are listening to this who want to continue to support the sciences, support paleontology, but aren't necessarily interested in getting their hands dirty on a dig, is there any advice on how they can support what you do? Do you have any ways that you think that they can just help get the word out and help just continue that forward momentum?
Well, a lot of it is donating to museums that do paleontology. I mean, paleontology doesn't get a lot of funding, I can assure you. It's especially in current administrations.
Yeah.
Not too excited about evolutionary biological studies. So anything you can do to help a paleontologist, donating to their projects is a great thing to do.
Yeah, that actually sparks a question. Would Chickenosaurus have come about had George Lucas not told you he wanted to fund it?
George Lucas didn't actually voluntarily fund it. George Lucas gave me, it's a funny story. I invited him to the field. I invited a lot of my friends out to the field that I knew. And
did he go through a screening process?
And George probably wishes he would have. George came out to the field, and he brought his kids, and the kids loved it, and George hated it, and he basically said, at the end of his time out there, he basically said, "I'll give you a pile of money, but don't invite me back again."
Oh man,
that sounds about right.
But he gave the money for anything I wanted to do, and so it was at my discretion as to what would happen with it, and so I decided that it would be the Dino Chicken Project, and he agreed that was just fine.
That's awesome.
Just as long as I didn't invite him back to the field
again. That's great.
So, have you? How's the consulting going for Jurassic World 2?
Well, I have read the script. I made lots of comments. I talked with Glenn McIntosh about some stuff. And I of course signed my NDA, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, we're going to throw some. I mean, we're notorious for trying to throw some left and right hooks. So you might want to be on your toes for the next few minutes. But you've mentioned. I know that you can't say much, but you've mentioned that it's going to be good and it's going to be scary. We're pretty excited to see Dilophosaurus back. What are your thoughts?
Well, I can't. I don't know what dinosaurs are actually in it, which ones, other than the ones I've read in the script, and I can't talk about those. So.
Dang it. See, I'm done with that.
I think that it is, though. It's pretty cool that you're working on so many projects. Influencing cutting edge science in the paleontological fields. Genetic research, working on films. Very few people can tick so many things off their list and be so influential. And also just work on so much. I think that's such a great achievement, working with students. And
of course, making it out to our event as well.
Yes.
Finding time in your schedule. We're so grateful that you made it out.
And for this podcast.
It made everybody's day getting to meet you.
Oh, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Do you still have, I got to ask, do you still have the sketch that Yaroslav gave to you? He drew you and then handed that to you.
I do. I was impressed. I tell you, that was...
Yeah, he did that.
Talented guy.
He did that in 20 minutes.
That's what you said. That was just shocking to me.
Yeah, he's a talented guy.
Yeah, he really is. He's a lot of fun as well. But yeah, obviously we can't talk about Jurassic World 2. I think that we've kind of exhausted our Jurassic Park and all of our questions. I don't think we're going to grill you on anything. Is there anything that you personally wanted to say or add, or that you wanted to talk to before we move to closing this out?
Well, I want to thank all the fans. They're great. They had great questions. They're a very enthusiastic group. I was amazed at how many Jurassic Park T-shirts there are in this world.
That's a lot. Yeah,
a lot of variation.
Yes, there is. Yeah, no, the fans are great. And, they're not only a good bunch, but they are very. Besides being enthusiastic, they're very knowledgeable about dinosaurs, which is great to see in people who like movies.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
And I guess with you working on Jurassic World 2, do you think you'll make it out to any other sets?
I don't. I have to say that that set in Louisiana in June was probably that was enough.
You were George Lucas that day, hating every part of it.
That was the hottest, most humid place I think I've ever been in my life.
I guess that is a nice part that they're in London now.
Jeez. Yeah, well, I don't really need to go to the set. They've moved into a whole new realm of the way they do things, and quite frankly, Glenn McIntosh and his crew are just so good at what they do now that they don't really, there's no need for a scientific advisor other than to go through the script.
Yeah. Yeah, we're excited to see just what's going to come about. We try to keep things as non-spoilery as possible, but there's been a few things that we've caught on to, and we're really excited to see what's in store for next year. But in terms of just the event, we were just so impressed with the turnout as well, and we're hoping to try and do this again soon. So it would be great to have you again.
I'm definitely happy to run your event anytime. That was fun.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. That really does mean a lot, and it was just we had a blast ourselves, and we were so thrilled that you made it out.
I mean, I think I said to you at the event, we all kind of grew up watching Jurassic Park, obviously, but also watching behind the scenes. So for me and for everybody here, and for a lot of people listening, you were a childhood hero. So it was impressive to meet you in person. It was pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm just having fun. That's all I do is just have fun. I know. It isn't hard work, I tell you.
For sure.
If you guys have any other questions,
I know that I'm personally exhausted. I mean, I could probably sit here and grill questions all day, but in terms of keeping this realistic and time affordable, I think that I've said what I should say.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Horner, for joining us and answering our questions and helping us, or letting us kind of geek out a little bit. And hope to talk to you soon.
You are very welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Horner. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.